All right. Welcome back. This is the blue versus green show where the blue is always on top of the green. We've got plenty to talk about, despite my colleagues over here, their deep sighs, their side eyes, and gold stuff. I am one of your hosts, Gabe, representing the blue and representing the green.
Jose, what's up, y'all? I'm wearing green.
Walter, and unfortunately today I'm wearing blue. I don't know. It's not an indication of my fandom. It's an indication of my extreme love for Broly. So
it's an indication that you need to fire your wardrobe department.
Yeah, that's him. So
don't worry. I think that we'll be able to hopefully invest in a proper wardrobe assistant as we continue to grow this show, which we can only do if you guys continue watching. So thank you guys for joining us. We got a ton of things to talk about. This is kind of just like a little bit of a, there isn't any football going on, so we really want to find things to talk about kind of cast. And we've got a Jets update with Aaron Rodgers, some other stuff happening before the draft happens, the draft itself. So why don't we just get right into it? No? Well, Jose, what do you guys have been up to, and what do you guys think of what's been going on with the Jets?
What has been going on with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers? Just
still the same story.
Leverage.
You know, if I hear that word one more time, I swear I'm going to just stomp on somebody, because
leverage.
It is ridiculous how. And I don't know if you guys have been on Twitter much, but Packers Twitter is absolutely insane. Like, I've never seen a fan base so out of touch with what trades look like. Like, early days, I kid you not, people were talking about, well, we want the first round pick, we want their second round pick, we want their first round for the next one, we want Sauce Gardner, we want Quincy Williams, we want ABT. And I'm like, guys, do you understand that this is a guy who literally said he was 90% retired? It's not like we're talking about Aaron Rodgers when he's 25. We're talking about an Aaron Rodgers who's 39. And it's funny because literally the guys that are saying all of that, they're like, oh, well, you know what? It's time for us to move away from our aging quarterback. I'm sorry. So you want all this for a guy that you're clearly talking about moving on? Come on.
Yeah, I think I heard somebody asking for Sauce Gardner's firstborn son in the 2043 draft. That was something that I saw out there on Jets Twitter or on Packers Twitter.
There's
so it's a little unrealistic.
A Brooklyn pizza pie, the Statue of Liberty, the Circle Line. I mean, come on, guys, really? Let's be for real. We traded for Brett Favre for a 4th round pick.
Right. No, I totally agree and understand. But you guys say this, but the truth of the matter is that, like, all the reports out there kind of are pointing to that. The reports are saying that, like, they want 3 first-round picks.
Or no, actually, three picks. They want a first-round pick and I think 3 or 4 picks in total.
They want 2.
Because we only have.
And
the last time.
Don't shoot the messenger. This is
no.
That's out there.
But I will tell you this:
rumors and speculation, because nothing's been said or confirmed from either party. But
yeah, you can confirm this because Brian Gutekunst, the Packers general manager, he already said they don't need a first round to complete this. They already said that. That is public. He put that out there.
Say this.
This was about I want to say a week, right, during the owners meetings. That was what, like a week and a half ago.
About that, yeah.
So it's crazy to me that it still hasn't happened. That, like, the Aaron Rodgers news is still no news.
Yeah, but you know what? So the report has it right now.
When is it gonna happen?
So here's what the report has it right now. The latest thing that is out there, and I believe it's by a guy named Charles Johnson, who's been pretty good with this. Supposedly, the package that's out there that the Jets want is that they're willing to give a 2nd round pick this year. They want to do a conditional pick next year. And in case Rodgers does not play in 2024, they want that third round pick of the following year.
Right.
The holdup, you're right. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad package to begin with, because you know what?
No.
We've already seen what happened with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, the Seahawks traded him and gave them the first round pick, assuming that Denver was going to be good. Guess what happened? Denver has the 5th pick in the draft. This totally blew up in Seattle's face. And so the Jets are looking at this and seeing the stuff that happened with Seattle. And they're like, you know what? We don't want to have that happen to us, because we are assuming that if Aaron Rodgers plays, that draft pick is going to be late 20s, maybe early 30s, because we're assuming that it's good. We're going to be good.
Yeah.
Then Seattle thought the same thing, and it turned out Denver was horrible, and now they miss out on a 5th pick in the draft. So again, I don't think the Jets thing is, ridiculous in terms of what they're asking, but the Packers are hung up on that pick for next year. They want it to be a very specific. It has to be either first or second round. They don't want the conditions attached to that. So that's the hang up right now. That's what I believe, and that's what's being reported out there right now.
Yeah, and as the Jets, you can use a couple of solid picks over the next couple of years to fill some positions that you might not be able to fill in this year's draft. So you don't want to necessarily give up picks of that value so quickly, even if it is for an Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
I think that's the holdup. That's definitely the holdup. It seems to be, at least.
Right. But we still need to talk about that one word, the L word, leverage, because the fact that Lamar Jackson is now definitely not going anywhere, and there is nowhere else for Aaron Rodgers to go, they really do have all the leverage, because at the end of the day, the Packers could just be like, all right, well, we just won't trade him then, I know it sounds crazy. I know that it sounds crazy for them to say that, like, we won't trade him. We'll just foot the bill and just pay him, even though he may not play, or we'll just sit him. But they do have all the leverage and can hold the gun on the Jets. Because the Jets don't have a choice. Come draft day, they need to either make a decision or not. They need to either have the deal done by draft day or draft another quarterback.
So I don't think the Packers are going to do that very quickly. Like, I think the reasoning doesn't make sense. Like, the Packers have a lot of work to do for their own team over the next couple of years, so they have to start focusing on that. They need to free up some of that money as quickly as possible. They're really shooting themselves in the foot if they did something like that as well. It's kind of a mutually assured destruction situation, and I don't think they're going to do that.
We forget Aaron Rodgers' contract when we talk about this stuff, because the cap right now for him is very friendly. I believe if you trade him now, you get the Jets would be picking up, I think, $13 million in cap, right? But the biggest issue is that $60 million payout. And so if the Packers choose not to trade him, they better start getting ready to release a ton of players, because that cap hit comes due this year. So the fact that we're trying to say that the Packers have all the leverage, I don't buy that one bit, because you're going to get a guy that's sitting on the bench that's taking up nearly $60 million of your cap. And that means you now have to decimate your team just to keep Aaron Rodgers on there.
A team that's already in dire straits.
That doesn't sound like leverage to me at all.
And needs weapons for their young quarterback desperately.
I'm playing the devil's advocate here. But what's the like, when it comes to the term of leverage, you want to talk about, like, who has the worst hand, right?
So right now, I still
think that the Jets have the worst hand.
I don't agree.
I don't agree with that, because you know what? To me, there are timelines here, and there are deadlines that are going to be hit pretty soon. The first one is Monday, right? Because Monday starts the voluntary training camp, right? Now, that's a very soft cap in my mind, but imagine Aaron Rodgers showing up at Packers camp when Jordan Love is supposed to be the starter. I think, and this is my feeling, that I think that you want to make sure that as you're going into these camps, as you're walking in, you can go ahead and tell your players, this is our starter. And that goes both ways. That goes for both Green Bay and the Jets. But right now, you know, you're looking right now, and listen, we picked up a guy in I can't remember his name, but we picked up a Green Bay Packer quarterback as our backup, right? He's literally there to run the offense until Aaron Rodgers gets there because he has familiarity with Nathaniel Hackett's system, right? So in terms of the Jets, yes, he's not the talent level that Aaron Rodgers is, but you have a guy that knows it and can run it during camp. When you look at Green Bay, if you're walking in with Jordan Love coming into camp and then Aaron Rodgers coming into camp, what are you going to say at that point? Because at that point, they're both still on your team, right? So what do you say to your players? Who's going to be running first team? Is it going to be Jordan Love or is it going to be Aaron Rodgers?
But that is Packers' problem. So, that doesn't necessarily.
But that's a problem, though.
It's a problem, absolutely.
Right.
But like, having Aaron Rodgers in general is just a problem. Period. Whether it's this issue or not, regardless, I agree.
That's a different conversation, I think, a little bit in this context.
And again, that's why
Aaron Rodgers, we all kind of agree, can be a difficulty, team chemistry wise. So we agree with you on that one.
So, and he's already pissed off at the Packers organization. Yeah. You don't think that he won't walk in there and cause a big stink? I totally see that's something Aaron Rodgers would do, right? Especially the way he's feeling about the Packers organization.
But that's also why like this is like kind of like a spite thing because the Packers are like, you could have retired last year. You could have like this, that, and the third. And now you're mad at us for doing our due diligence as a business, as opposed to, doing whatever you want because you're a princess. That's the issue that I have is that Aaron Rodgers is like this, entity that's so combustible and you just don't know what's going to happen, whether he walks onto the field at the Packers or if he goes into a dark room and all that stuff. So anyway,
yes, but that doesn't address what's going on here in terms of who has the better hand to play. And I think another point that I want to make, and then I want to move on from Aaron Rodgers again because we're talking about him too much. At least me personally, I'm talking about somebody too much that nothing has happened over the past few weeks, and it's a bit annoying. But if you're the Jets, you already have a really solid base as your team on defense and on offense, minus the quarterback, okay? There are some things we need to address, obviously, offensive tackle, safety, strong safety, a linebacker, and defensive lineman. So there's some needs that we can address in the draft, right? Whether or not we get Aaron Rodgers, there's some things that we can do there in the draft. So things we can do in trades over the next season. Let's say that it's a bust. We don't get Aaron Rodgers. We don't get anybody at quarterback. We go with Zach Wilson another year. Let's look at the Packers really quickly. Again, if they keep Aaron Rodgers, they have to decimate their team in terms of cap space. They have to get rid of some of their best players, a team that already doesn't have any offensive weapons for Jordan Love. Looking ahead to 2024, some of the free agent quarterbacks, and I'm not a fan of this guy, but some of the quarterbacks that are going to be free agents are Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. There are weapons coming next year that the Jets could target if the Packers decide to blow this thing up. What do the Packers do this season if they decide to blow this up? They get worse. They get a lot worse. And then maybe they get the promise of a better draft pick next year because of how bad they'll do this season. But if you're the Packers, you are insane if you decide to blow up this trade for a holdout of first-round draft picks or Sauce Gardner or whoever the hell it is that they're trying to get. I don't think they're going to do it. I think that they're just making it look kind of like they're creating this vision of leverage in order to make it look like they're in the driver's seat. The Jets know they're in the driver's seat, so they, for lack of a better way to put it, don't give a shit. They're just waiting it out.
Driver's seat against someone that might be crazy run with trying to play a game of chicken.
Listen,
again, Aaron Rodgers is a different conversation. The Packers don't have leverage here. That's nonsense, if you ask me.
And listen, one last thing before we move on. It's not like the Packers are having to blockade the door from offers for Aaron Rodgers, because they're dealing with one team and one team only. And they tried to manufacture interest with this whole, guess what? The 49ers are interested. Come on, give me a break. You know what I'm saying? That never happened. That's not going to happen. Nobody is willing to take on a 39-year-old quarterback with 90% retired with that shitty-ass contract that he has. And let me tell you something. That contract that the Packers gave him is garbage. No, it's true. It's true. But you know what? But nobody, that is a shitty ass contract that the Packers gave him, and they admit it.
It sounds so much like the Jets.
It is. Listen, I'm not gonna disagree with you. But the fact is, the Packers have only one suitor in this, and that's the Jets. And that's why, in terms of leverage, and you listen, leverage is a subjective word. I don't think either teams have leverage, to be quite honest. But you know what? If you, as of right now, I think the Jets have just a smidgen more, because they've got like the soft cap of training camp coming up, and they have a much more harder cap in terms of the draft, because if they want any help this year, they have to do it before the draft. If not, you know what? I'm almost fine for them to say, let's get past the draft, because you know what? Now we get 3 guys in the top 50. So I'm fine with blowing past that deadline. I don't know if the Packers are. So that's all I'm going to say on that. You know.
Well, you know, like I do want to say, I wonder how much leverage would the Jets have had if they had gotten OBJ.
That is an excellent transition. Let's talk about my man. Well, actually, he's more your guy, if anything, right?
He's not my guy.
Not anymore, I guess.
He didn't even entertain trying to be my guy. He didn't even really, truly entertain trying to come back to the Giants. So let's be clear about OBJ.
Let's talk
and
about
OBJ. How he played New York fan base, right? He tried to leverage. This was crazy to me, because there goes that L word again. He tried to leverage the New York fan base to create a buzz about him coming back to the East Coast and coming back to New York. First, it was, you know, I have unfinished business with the Giants and with my man Saquon Barkley and this, that, and the third. And that turned into like, well, I am kind of coming back to New York, but I kind of want to wear the green. And that whole conversation was all what? To leverage more money against the team that he actually really, really wanted to be with. And it was with the Ravens, which he ultimately signed. No?
For $15 million.
Already kind of burned. In my mind, I told you guys already separately that, like, you know, if he's going to come back to the East Coast and not sign with the Giants, then in my eyes, he's no longer, like, you know, we have the saying is like, you know, once a Giant, always a Giant. This is one of those cases where I'm just like, maybe not in this case. You know, if you were,
I'm surprised at that. I'm surprised at that.
Always a Giant, then how do you even entertain coming back to New York, but to play for the other team? How do you even entertain that? You know, so that's just me. And he ended up signing with the Ravens. So I don't know. Like, he never signed with the Jets. So I feel like maybe that doesn't hold true. But the fact that he played the Jets and the New York fan base just to get the contract that he got from the Ravens, that also leaves a really salty taste in my mouth, you know?
Hey, Jose, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
How many Jets are on the Giants roster right now?
How many Jets are on the Giants roster right now? That's a good question.
Gabe, you want to answer that question?
No. I would
it's
love
more than one. It's more than two. It's more than three. So, the whole point of, you know.
But you guys don't have that saying. You guys don't have like one.
Yeah, and like I said, that's kind of surprising to me, because you know what, I would tend to think that, yeah, I know it's kind of like let's say Aaron Judge going to the Mets or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think for us it's that extreme. I guess for Giants fans it is. You know, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna throw it to Jose because I want to get his thoughts on that. I honestly do think that the interest between the Jets and OBJ was genuine. And at first I was like, you know what? Again, we've been played because it's happened so many times in the past with the Jets, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I really do believe that there was some genuine interest in here, and it was literally a matter of the Ravens desperate to bring somebody in to kind of entice Lamar to come in, and they literally overpaid to get OBJ. And you know what?
Yeah.
The reports are that OBJ did go back to the Jets and say, "Hey, can you sweeten the pot a little bit?"
Yeah.
And the Jets were like, "No, we're not." So, to me, again, I think that also tends to kind of like fit the narrative of him wanting to go to the Jets, because he did go back and say, "Hey, guys, can you do something for me?" And honestly, 15 million, 18 million, too much for OBJ to be. And as OBJ, as good as OBJ would have fit in the Jet organization, I don't think he was necessarily in need. To be honest, when I heard the news about OBJ going to the Ravens, I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
it didn't phase me, like that. So that's my take. What do you think, Jose?
That's exactly, in a nutshell, that's exactly what I would say. Like for $14 million, almost guaranteed, $50 million for a 1 year contract. OBJ was a superstar a few years ago. He hasn't been on the field really in a while. The last time we saw him, he had an impact in the Super Bowl, I guess. Great, good for him. And he did well with the Rams in the time that he was with them. But again, he's 30 years old. We haven't seen him on the field in a few years. $50 million is not something that I would pay if I were the Jets, because we have a solid wide receiver room, and apparently the rumors now are that they're looking at Hopkins as well, which would blow things up in terms of our wide receiver room.
I would rather have
Giants,
Hopkins, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. If you're going to go for somebody that's a little bit more of a veteran, he's been on the field a little bit more recently. The Giants shouldn't have paid that kind of money either, I don't think. I don't think that Odell Beckham Jr. Is the weapon that you're looking for. We talked about this a little bit before the cast, right, Gabe? Like, you need somebody who's a deep threat, and Odell Beckham Jr. was that. He's older. We don't know if he still is that. And the bigger problem that the Giants have in terms of signing somebody like Odell Beckham Jr. is y'all don't have any size on your wide receiver team. Like, everybody is like about 6 feet or shorter. You know what I mean? You need a big wide receiver on that team, a big target for Daniel Jones, I think, at least. I mean, every team, I think, needs at least one big wide receiver target and not just a big tight end target. And y'all don't have that. Odell Beckham Jr. does not resolve that need. So I don't think he's worth it. In terms of him kind of playing all of the New York teams, I don't think he really was doing that, honestly. I think he was genuinely looking for a good contract as somebody who hasn't been on the field in a while. He feels like he has a lot to prove, and he feels like he's worth it. And I don't think either team was going to pay him that kind of money, bottom line. The Ravens will, because apparently they're taking a chance on Lamar Jackson, which is a whole other conversation in terms of the money that they're paying him. But, I mean, in a nutshell, yeah, like, he's not worth the money. And I'm not going to be too offended by a player that's looking for the best deal for himself, especially in what's starting to be the twilight of his career. Yeah, I mean, that's my opinion on that.
I mean, but again, that's why I say, like, there's nothing wrong with someone going out there to get, like, the best possible contract that they can get. That's what Daniel Jones did. But this is why I say that, like, he was playing. Like, yes, I do think that the interest was genuine between OBJ and the Jets, but not with the Jets because of the team, but the Jets because of the potential for the money. He was interested in the Jets' potential money. That conversation with the Giants was serious because there wasn't money there, So my thing is that, like, because he was looking for the money, he did leverage the fan fervor of the New York fans in order to create the buzz to get the money. I think that without the buzz of OBJ coming back to New York, that there would not have been as much value added to him, because he wouldn't have really been trending. He was only trending because of the idea of him coming back to New York, whether it's to the Giants or to the Jets, and being put together with Aaron Rodgers. Yes, I do think that the conversations were genuine between him and the Jets, but I don't think that even he thought that it was realistic that he would be with the Jets, because my man even had a scheduled appointment with the Jets while he was hanging out with Lamar Jackson. So how serious can you really be about, like, signing on to the Jets? I have an appointment that I'm gonna go do a physical with them, but I'm doing this. It's like you set up a date with the girl that you're seeing for tomorrow while you're in bed with someone else. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why it doesn't seem genuine to me, and that's why I feel like he was really just using the fanfare of the New York teams to buzz his name up to then get a bigger contract elsewhere. I think it was more like, all right, like best case scenario, New York Jets come up with the money and they decide to sink all that money into me, and I go back to New York with the money that I want, but I don't think that that's even something that he thought was even more than a 10% chance of being realistic.
Well, I mean, he was chasing the money. I agree with that, but I don't find that as offensive, I guess, is really the point that I would make.
Right.
Because he was never a Jet. For the Giant, it is.
I understand.
I'm gonna say this, and we'll wrap this one up with this. OBJ is entering his 30. He's gonna be 31 with this contract. He's got 2 ACLs. With the Rams, he averaged 38 yards per game, and he hasn't averaged more than 40 since 2019. Okay, with the Jets, and I think with him, the Ravens is a better situation for him, not only financially, but just being on the field, because with the Jets, at best, he probably would have been wide receiver 2, if not wide receiver 3, because he's not going to supplant Garrett Wilson. There's a possibility that Aaron Lazard is over him in terms of just the fact that he has not played that much. With Baltimore, he does have the opportunity to be the main guy. They do have a guy over there. I forget what his name is. I think it's Rashard Bateman or whatever. I don't remember who that wide receiver is, but the fact that I don't remember his name tells you that, he has a chance to be the guy over there.
About it.
So I think, not only financially, but in terms of just playing time and, where you are in the pecking order, Baltimore makes sense for him. Now, the question becomes, who's going to be throwing the ball to him? I don't think that there is a snowball chance in hell that he signed that deal not knowing for a fact that Lamar is going to be there next year.
No question about it.
So,
question about it. So, I personally wish him well. It's going to be still awesome to see him play. I hope that Lamar and OBJ have a really good connection on the field and stuff. I think, I don't know. Maybe this is maybe OBJ is like, hey, look, let's have a badass season, let's kill it, and then let's leave somewhere else together, after the season or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, let's show them what they're missing out on and stuff. But anyway, I wish him well. But this isn't the Blue Green Purple podcast. This is the Blue and Green show, and we still got a little bit more blue to talk about.
Yes. What is going on with Saquon, bro?
Nothing's going on.
And Dexter Lawrence, for that matter.
All of this stuff is nothing is going on. Everything is wonderful over here.
Video show
on the blue. Look at that beautiful green field. It's everything is great and hunky dory. Literally nothing to talk about. They're just deciding to not sign their contracts yet, which makes them ineligible to come to the voluntary practices. But again, they're voluntary. Most of these guys don't show up anyway. Half the all the veterans. This is more for like the rookies This is more for like the new people that are on the squad to kind of get comfortable and accustomed to, you know, them to the team, the facility, and everything. The veterans, they have like their own workouts, man. Like Dexter Lawrence, sexy Dexy, as we see on this. You know, I would say that I'm a little bit more concerned with Dex.
That man's a beast.
I still think, you know, that like they're both signed their contracts. They're just, you know, bringing it down to the wire. Like, you know, one thing that we've seen is that the Giants are really good at negotiating down to the wire, making sure that they do all their due diligence, and making sure that they don't get bullied around. I think.
Right. You know, I kind of there's that word again. There's that word again.
There's the leverage cast.
Oh my gosh! But you know what? I do tend to agree with it. I think people are making this to be much bigger than what it really is, because like you said, these are voluntary workouts. So even if they were signed, if they don't show up, it's not a big deal. You know what I'm saying? The fact that they're looking for the bag, especially with Saquon, but really with Dexter Lawrence, right? It kind of makes sense, because let's say you go to voluntary and you get hurt, that puts your leverage
in danger.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not completely worried about, you know, Saquon and Dexter missing voluntaries. But the longer that this lingers, especially with Saquon, it becomes a little bit more problematic, because you want to get those guys in there. You want to get them working, especially after the year that you guys had last year, where, you know, everything was positivity and all that stuff. You want to get those guys in there and working toward that one goal, right?
But again, I think this is just business as usual.
Yeah, that's all.
They're not. It's not like they're sitting at home not working. They're doing their thing. Saquon Barkley was with Daniel Jones in Arizona, you know, running plays and practicing and getting themselves kind of back ready to before, you know, coming into the facility. So, you know, I don't think that this is all acting in bad faith. I think this is just social media and you know, journalists out there that are trying to, you know, in a very slow story kind of a news cycle, you know, the only thing that's happening is that nothing has happened with the Jets and nothing is happening with the Giants. So let's fabricate some news. Really, what's happening?
Yeah, it's true.
It's honest truth. But when I say that, like, I'm less worried about Saquon, it's primarily because, again, we have so many picks in the draft that we're definitely going to be picking up some running backs or trading up to some running backs, which is also a healthy and most likely scenario for the Giants, considering that Saquon is starting his 5th year, so he's about halfway through his running back life cycle. It all sounds about right with Saquon, and we're most likely going to have the protection. But with Dex, you know, I'd be a little bit more concerned if something were to happen contractually or business wise with Dex. So.
Okay. So here's my take, I guess, on these two players. And then I guess you answered my question, which is who you would be more concerned about. But I'm going to have another question for you after that. The thing of it is with Saquon Barkley, like you both said, it's kind of business as usual. This happens a lot with a lot of these players. They miss the voluntary workouts early on in order to create the L word. I'm not going to use the entire word right now. We're going to censor that. In order to create their own L word for their contracts and increase their value on the market. With Saquon, I think it's going to be a little bit easier to reach that agreement, right? Because this franchise tag was somewhere around $10, $11 million, I think, is the one that he refused, if I'm not mistaken, right? And the money that he's looking for is like 4 years, $15 or $16 million, 4 or 5 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That was the last thing that I saw. That's not that far apart. That's not a huge difference in wants and needs for both the team and the player. So I can see them signing something like a 4-year contract somewhere in the 13 or 12 to $14 million range. I can see them reaching that kind of agreement without too much issue by the time that the actual training camp begins. With Dexter Lawrence, it's a little more concerning, right? Because he's somewhere in the 12 to $13 million range, I think, is his is the final year of his contract, and he's looking for a record-breaking contract because of the recent record-breaking contracts that have been signed in the NFL with some other tackles. So he's looking somewhere, I think, in the $90 to $95 million range for 4 or 5 years on that extension. That's a hell of a lot bigger of a difference in terms of the money that you're going to have to shell out for Dexter Lawrence, for Sexy Dexy. So I guess the question then becomes, like, who would be the bigger hit in terms of losing them at the end of the season? For me, I think it would be Lawrence. Actually, I think, like Gabe said, there's a lot of opportunity to find some other running backs, but I still think that Barkley might be worth it if he's willing to take around $13 million for 4 years, because that would finish out his life cycle as a running back. The other half of it about, right, it's like, 7 to 9 years for some of the best running backs. That would be about 9 years right there, and that might be worth it for the Giants. So that's kind of my take on that. But yeah, who would be the bigger loss in your opinion, guys?
Well, I was gonna ask, like, why don't we do a little bit like of a around the table, pick one to keep and one to let go.
I would keep Lawrence if you could, even though it's more difficult.
Yeah, I'd keep Lawrence myself, even though I love Barkley and I was rooting for him last season and really, really want him to stay. I really want that deal I wanted both of them back. When it was the same conversation, who do you keep, Jones or Barkley? I was like, you keep both, personally.
Yeah, if you can. Absolutely.
Now, this scenario is tough because now that we have Daniel Jones, it's you can replace Barkley, but I don't think you can replace Lawrence. Damn, now that I'm saying that out loud, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. Walter?
I understand that.
Okay. Am I going to be the one that breaks the unanimous thing? I'm not. I'm gonna
and lovers. Oh God.
Right. Listen, the stuff that Dexter Lawrence is going to go through is going to directly impact the Jets, because we have a guy in Quinnen Williams that has a contract coming up, and he's probably looking at 20 to 25 to get that bag, But I'm gonna fall back to what Robert Saleh says. When you have a guy that can rush the passer, you don't let him out the building, and those guys are hard to find. Unfortunately for Saquon Barkley, that is a position that has been devalued over the years. Whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm not going to be the one to tell you that. I think running backs still hold a ton of value on a team, especially since they get the ball so much. The problem is they get the ball so much, and so that opens them up to injuries, which shorten their careers. And so that's the problem that Saquon Barkley has right now. And there are guys in the draft that, and we're going to get to that a little bit later, there are guys in the draft that the Giants can take and kind of prepare themselves for Barkley leaving. Again, pass rushers are hard to find, and that's why I think, in agreeing with both of you guys, Dexter Lawrence needs to be the main focus.
Well, the thing is that, that's the thing. Barkley isn't going anywhere. No one's going to trade 2 first-round picks for Barkley. And so Barkley, if he wants to play, he's got to sign the contract no matter what the contract is.
Yeah, I know. And it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks for him because they did have an offer of 13.5 that they did turn down. So, this notion that the Giants aren't willing to work with him, dude, they offered him 13.5. So that's not the narrative that you should be running with. If you're,
absolutely. They like I said, they're trying to make sure that they're not getting necessarily bullied around. Mm-hmm. I know that a lot of people say that Jones's contract, look how much Jones got. Don't say that they're not getting bullied around, but they didn't get bullied around by Jones, because yes, he is getting $40 million. He's getting a $40 million a year contract, but half of that is all in incentives and future pay. They didn't get bullied around. It's not guaranteed money. Only what is it, $68 million out of his entire contract is guaranteed.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the Giants didn't get bullied around. They're showing that too. We're going to be fair, but we're not going to get bullied around because all of this, everything that's happening right now between the Giants, between the Jets, between every single player and every single team, and everybody asking for record-breaking contracts, it's because of one man and one team. Who do you guys think I'm talking about?
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. Okay?
Yeah.
We're gonna get used to this back.
I wanna kind of say one thing on the other side of what you were saying, Walter. Even though I also agree, running backs have tremendous value in the NFL. I don't look around. This is my personal anecdote. I don't look around at any team in the NFL that is a Saquon Barkley away from competing.
Right.
There's not a team that really has a need and wants to pay that kind of money at the same time.
And
so
that goes into the devaluing of that position and stuff. Before we move on, and Gabe, I did mention this to you that we were going to do this.
Okay.
On the
what you're talking about, so I'm concerned.
On the Twitterverse,
Okay.
there's a video going around regarding both Saquon and Dexter and DJ.
Mhm.
I'm gonna play it now, and I want you guys to kind of react to what this is, because I find it very, very interesting. But you know what? I'll save that for your reactions. Here's the video that we're talking about.
You pay Daniel Jones, but now you're not going to pay Saquon. You're not going to give Dexter. Everybody in that locker room knows the reason they won wasn't because of Daniel Jones. He had something to do with it, but he didn't carry the team. The players know this. You can't con the players. They know this. Mm-hmm. And so there it is, right? Chronic feeling of underappreciation. Saquon feels underappreciation. Daniel doesn't, but Saquon does. Dexter does. And so this is what happens. And they didn't win enough, and they're not good enough as a team to be able to kind of go through this. Like, they didn't win a championship. They won 9 freaking games and beat a shitty Minnesota team and got their ass kicked. They're not good enough to have the disease of me.
That has inspired a ton of anger and vitriol toward this guy. And let me tell you who this guy is. I have it here. This was
I can tell you who he is. He's Mr. Full of Shit.
Michael Lombardi. He was on the GM Shuffle podcast. And that has gotten a lot of reaction, especially in the Twitterverse, because a lot of people saying he's out of touch. A lot of people saying he doesn't know what's going on in the locker room, but then a lot of people are agreeing with him also, saying that, you know what, DJ didn't deserve that money, and those players are kind of feeling resentful for it. And I'm kind of looking at you, Gabe, because I wanted you to react to this more than anything, because you're the big giant guy in this room here.
Well, here's my thing. Like, people that say that, like, oh, they're that anybody that's agreeing with him, I would just point to all the players that sing all of Daniel Jones's praises throughout the entire season and after the season. Mm-hmm. They're all giving credit. Saquon Barkley has given all the credit to Daniel Jones, and for a reason. They all were happy that he got paid, because they saw, like, the biggest thing over the last 3 years has always been, man, no one sees the work that Daniel Jones puts in. Nobody sees, like, the talent that he has that we haven't been able to show on the field because of coaching, because of lack of weapons, and so on and so forth. So clearly, yes, we're not in the locker room, but those players are the ones that are defending him, and the ones that see the work that he does and that work with the guy. And if that was the case, that he didn't deserve it, or that, and you wait, first of all, he's gonna say that Daniel Jones didn't feel unappreciated. Are you kidding me? The reason that he held out for the contract that he had is because he felt like he was left with the bag and always taking the heat for the last 3 years. He was underappreciated, and he still is. Again, this feels like Eli Manning all over again. The most underappreciated quarterback of all time, I feel like. And my man he showed out. He showed that he can. Yes, he didn't have like on the numbers game. He didn't have the most remarkable numbers last year. And yes, we only won 9 games. And sure, we only beat a shitty Minnesota team that a ton of other teams all lost to all throughout the entire season. So shut your mouth. Okay, first of all. But he did all this without any tools, without any help. The only tool that he had was Saquon Barkley. That is it. Another man that also had to show out in order to get his well-deserved kind of, respect. Okay, so we're talking about a team that overperformed, and they only overperformed not just because of the coaching, but because of Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, because we had nothing else.
Yeah.
So this, what is this, Mr. Lombardi, Michael Lombardi, he doesn't understand. Look, I'm not going to call myself the authority on the NFL or on contracts or anything like that compared to anybody else, but he clearly doesn't understand shit about contracts in the NFL. I mean, if anything, we already mentioned it. Blame Deshaun Watson, number one, for driving up the value of quarterbacks considerably, and Russell Wilson as well. These ridiculous contracts that they've signed in the area of $40-50 million. These are the highest contracts that you have in the NFL for the quarterbacks. The highest paid defensive tackle is Aaron Donald, who is arguably one of the greatest defensive tackles in NFL history. And he's getting paid about $30 million, which is well above a lot of the other defensive tackles in the NFL. So he's an outlier there. And then the highest paid running back, I think, is Christian McCaffrey at about $15 or $16 million. Okay, so you're talking about different stratospheres in terms of value here. That's the one thing. The other thing is, again, to me, and I don't know if y'all agree, I don't know if Giants fans agree, it was harder to be successful in the scheme and the situation that Daniel Jones was in than the situation that Saquon Barkley was in. Personally, for me, it's a little bit easier to have a really solid running game than to have no wide receiver weapons, to have a poor offensive line, and still do what Daniel Jones did all season. Personally, to me, that's something that's like damn near impossible, which is why I think he was maybe, $40 million was a little bit much, but he deserves to be in the higher tier of quarterbacks currently. And, next year we're going to see some people like, again, a Joe Burrow and other quarterbacks like that go above him in terms of value. So for me, this player or this Lombardi person doesn't know what the hell he's talking about in terms of his opinion on who gets valued and who doesn't get valued by the Giants organization, the fans, whoever else.
So let me give you Lombardi's CV, because we do need to talk about who he is in order to understand where he's coming from. He does have NFL experience. He was the pro personnel director for the Cleveland Browns and the director of player personnel. He was the director of pro personnel for Philadelphia Eagles. He was a senior personnel executive for the Oakland Raiders. He was the GM and vice president of the Cleveland Browns. And his last job was he was assistant to the coaching staff in New England back in 2015. And now he is an NFL analyst for both the NFL Network, and he has his own podcast, which is the aforementioned GM Shuffle. So
cool.
I don't know if we can totally say he doesn't know what he's talking about.
When was the last time the Browns won anything?
No. I listen.
Last time the Browns did anything good?
Won anything. When was he involved with the Eagles? Those are the only two questions I have, because New England, he did nothing. He did nothing for most of his other teams.
No, I totally agree, but we can't phrase him like he doesn't know the inner workings of the NFL, because he has been there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, the inner workings, sure, but this opinion is trash. You got to understand the NFL. His opinion is still garbage in my opinion.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And that's why I played the clip, because I wanted to get this reaction from you guys. But we do have to respect the fact that he has some NFL.
Absolutely.
This is not a guy that works on a New York radio station and just spouts stuff, just for the sake of spouting
100%.
stuff.
No question about it.
But
Elon Musk, for example, Elon Musk is a cyber tech industry giant. Knows what he's talking about there. Still full of shit.
Yeah. And listen, bad takes are bad takes, right?
Yeah.
And everybody has them. So,
I think this is more of like a hot take for him, specifically on his
exactly.
Much like my Elon Musk take right now.
Exactly. So that's all it was.
No question about it. He's not somebody that I would draft for this show. But why don't we talk about who the Jets and Giants would be drafting?
You are on fire with the segue, man.
I'm trying to beat you as the segue master.
I don't know. Yeah, I think you've got me beat. So
let's talk trash. Let's talk draft. Okay.
All right. Let's go.
Where do we begin? What do the Jets need? We just talked about the Giants for a little bit.
The Jets need to.
What do the Jets need?
Aaron Rodgers.
Well, the Jets. So
that's not the draft.
I tried doing a mock draft, but the fact of the matter is that it's hard to kind of speculate what we're doing in the draft, not knowing what the draft compensation could possibly be for Aaron Rodgers. So for the sake of this episode, we are going to go with the fact that the Jets still have the 13th pick in the draft, and in the second round, they still hold 42 and 43. Just for the sake of talking about this particular, episode. And listen, by the time this thing releases, that might change drastically, But I still do think that the Jets are going to be there at 13. That's my feeling. I don't think that does change. I think second round is probably where you're going to find the biggest changes and whatnot. So,
what position do you feel we need to address with that 13th pick first and foremost?
All right. So the 13th,
and we're assuming we have it. Yeah,
right.
Go ahead.
And I don't think that
I agree with that. By the way,
I don't think that's going to happen. I think for me personally, the Jets have to go offensive tackle. I mean, unless and of course, this is all dependent on what happens at the top of the draft, and it really does depend, if you think about it, on how many quarterbacks are taken before them, because you're looking at a situation where 3 or maybe even 4 quarterbacks are taken before 13. And if that's the case, then that's good news for the Jets, because that means there are going to be guys out there for them to take. Guys like Paris Johnson, guys like Broderick Jones, guys like Peter Skoronski, right? Those are the things that I really do think the Jets need at 13. And 13 is really that sweet spot in the draft. I mean, if you look at past drafts, you've had multiple All-Pros taken at that draft position. Me personally, I do like Paris Johnson. I think for me, it's either Paris Johnson or Broderick Jones. I think Broderick Jones is a stud. He has the best measurables in the draft. I think, if I remember correctly, he ran a 4.94 on the 40, which for a guy his size is ridiculous, right? So this guy, Broderick Jones, is, an athletic talent. But there's also the possibility that those guys are taken as well. And if that's the case, then there are other options for the Jets. But let's focus on tackle first. Jose, what do you think?
I mean, I think that's an easy answer. It's offensive tackle. If you're getting Aaron Rodgers, hopefully, or whoever the hell you're getting, if you stay with Zach Wilson, you know what? At least let's get the offensive line to protect him, because his biggest issue is he takes too damn long to throw the ball. So give him a split second longer to maybe throw the ball. Maybe you'll see a little bit more success. It's offensive tackle. Basically agree with who you pick up. Skoronski was somebody that I was looking at because he's probably the most well-balanced offensive tackle, but you're not wrong in focusing on Paris Johnson Jr., excuse me, because he probably fits the best into the Jets zone blocking schemes. But one way or the other, you got to go for offensive tackle because that's probably, I don't want to say the biggest weakness, but the most important weakness to address. You could talk about, strong safety again. We talked about that and cleaning up tackles in the run game, which is something that you've talked about a few times, Walter, and we've addressed that a little bit in free agency. There's more work to be done there. I think it's our outside linebacker. We need another outside linebacker. And again, defensive tackles are something that are always useful. But yeah, it's 100% agreed. Offensive tackle, focus on one of the ones that you or I suggested at number 13. Kind of whoever's available amongst those players.
Absolutely.
You take a chance on them. Yeah.
The only thing I will say about Skoronski is that I do think that he's a very, very polished player. The only problem I have with him is, unfortunately, he's got short arms, and as a tackle, that's not really good. You need those guys that have big wingspans because they're on the outside. Skoronski, and a lot of people have said this. He looks like he's a guy that might move toward the interior of the line, basically like guard, because with having those short arms, if you're bookend by the center and the tackle, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. That's more of a guard position, so that's why I'm a little worried about taking Skoronski there. He's a really good player, but I don't think he trends well on the tackle. I think he's more of a guard, and that's why I like Paris Johnson, because he's got that huge wingspan.
He's done really well in college, but that's a different animal. He doesn't get beat in college. I think they said that something like 1,500 or 500, about 500 snaps. He's given up one sack. He's responsible for one sack being given up. That said, the NFL is a different beast, and those little slight differences and subtleties, like a guy, unfortunately, with short arms, might make more of a difference in the NFL, where you have the biggest of the huge players, the 6'5", 330-pound monsters with 80-inch wingspans, damn near. So it makes a difference in the NFL more so. I could agree with that.
So
all right,
that's I think the biggest need in terms of the Jets. At 42 and 43, I would like to see them take a center, definitely. And at that point, you can start once you got that. And I do hope that they do go after Ben Jones in free agency, the previous center for Tennessee. He has we have some our offensive line guy was his offensive guy in Tennessee, so I would like to see that. But let's talk about the Giants now, because the Giants have some picks. They have needs. I think one of the biggest needs.
We got picks.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest needs, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think they go wide receiver in that first round?
Well, I really do think that, I think that, again, weapons for Daniel Jones is all right. So as far as priorities go, we need more weapons for Daniel Jones, as evidenced by the fact that, he didn't have enough weapons in order to produce as much as he could possibly produce. We do also still need better protection on the O-line. So those are the two areas that I think that we do need to kind of really, really focus and fix. However, with the amount of picks that we have, we also have the ability to trade up. With the 25th overall pick, I think a lot of the best options are most likely going to be gone. So I have my desires and who I would want to pick, and I do want to see a couple wide receivers being picked up, especially because in this wide receiver class, we have some wide receivers that don't only have amazing talent, also have a lot of really good experience with some other really good quarterbacks and systems and stuff. So I think that this is going to be I would say the most veteran rookies coming into the season, I think. But yeah, the overall, my overall feeling is while there's some players that I would like to see us get picked, I'd like to see us pick. I think that most likely we're going to be trading up to try to move up higher on the draft, so that we can then get these picks. And the people that I'm looking at, I really like Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. I mean, everybody's saying that it's going to be between these two. But personally, I really like Jalen Hyatt, mainly because he's a deep ball kind of guy. Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison are great. They're route runners. Have a lot of really good experience. I think Jordan Addison has probably the best experience, having caught for Kenny Pickett, and playing at Pitt and stuff. I think that Jordan Addison probably has the more veteran seeming kind of experience, you could say. He also has the biggest wingspan out of the three, which, by the way, I know that I want a bigger wide receiver guy, but all these guys are about the same height, with Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers coming in at 6 feet, around 175 to 180 pounds.
Zay Flowers is undersized. Actually, he's 5'10".
Yeah,
he's not 6 foot. Zay Flowers is 5'10".
Oh, sorry, Zay Flowers is 5'10". Jalen Hyatt and and Jordan Addison, they're both 6 feet. So we're still looking at relatively small wide receivers. But if we can't get them on big size, we can get them in speed and depth. So yeah, my top pick, or what I think will most likely happen, is either we move up higher on the draft to get Jordan Addison, or we end up getting Jalen Hyatt if he's available at 25th. So.
I will say this: I'm kind of sold for the Giants, and again, this is me speaking as a Jets fan, so I'm not as well versed with your team as much as mine, right? But I do like Zay Flowers for the Giants. I do understand that he's 5'9", and that is a problem.
5'10". We always we're adult men, so we always round up a couple inches.
Yeah. So okay, so we'll put him at 5'10", right? So that is undersized in terms of the wide receiver room, especially with your wide receiver room, which is kind of smallish here. But the fact that he has that game-breaking talent, that's something that you don't have right now in that room. And he's a guy that defensive coordinators are going to lose sleep over because of the speed that he has and the separation that he can create with the cornerbacks. I think putting him with the Giants, that gives them another game breaker along with Saquon, that makes it difficult to game plan for the Giants in terms of their offense, because that gives you that vertical deep threat. And I'm going to use something that Joe Douglas likes to use. Speed brings pressure, and pressure breaks pipes, And I think when you add that to the Giants room, that's a weapon that you can't look away from, So
yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's funny that you mentioned this, because one of the biggest for me late season highlights that I was really excited for that we no longer have is Richie James. He was kind of, coming into his own. He was being kind of like a bit of a game breaker wide receiver. He's 5'9". So
right. So you can get away with those smallish guys. I think when you're looking at taller receivers, you're really looking more red zone and
yeah, you look at it, but again, that's why I say we don't have a deep ball guy, which is why Daniel Jones doesn't ever throw the deep ball.
Right. And you know what? You're right now, your red zone guy really is going to be Darren Waller. I think he's a guy that Daniel Jones is going to rely on. I wouldn't be surprised if you're looking at plus 70 catches for him, if not more, in terms of that offense, because he's really going to be the guy that Daniel Jones is going to focus on, Yeah.
Okay. So let me give my take real quick. I still don't agree that Zay Jones is the right pick for the Giants, because if you're talking about game-breaking speed, you actually should be talking more about Jalen Hyatt. He has a faster 40 time than than Zay Jones does. He might be quicker. Zay Jones may be quicker, but you're talking about 4.4640 for Zay Jones and a 4.4 for Jalen Hyatt. It's a small difference, but these are the things that make a bigger difference in the NFL. He has a 40-inch vertical. He has an 11-foot broad jump, and he's a lot bigger. He's one of the biggest wide receivers that we talked about, actually. He's 6'1", 185 pounds. If you talk about somebody like Jordan Addison, he's 6 foot, I think, 175 pounds. So in comparison, a little bit more undersized, and his 40 time is 4.49. So for me, it's all Jalen Hyatt, I think, or not all Jalen Hyatt, but I think he's the best possibility for them. Also, in terms of the fact that he's the one that's most likely to fall to them at 25th. You're not as likely to get Jordan Addison. He's probably going to be somewhere around 20, and Zay Flowers is probably going to be even higher than that. So in terms of business sense, it makes the most sense also, because then you don't have to trade up, and you potentially are actually getting the best wide receiver in terms of speed and size for the Giants.
That works.
Yeah, I think
that's my opinion.
Jordan's gonna end up going to the Cowboys. Zay or Jordan, one of them are gonna end up going to the Cowboys. That's my feeling. So, which sucks, but because Cowboys suck. Anyway, I think we kind of have covered everything that we needed to cover. Look at that. And here I thought that there was no news, but we got something out of this weird New York State of football non-news news.
Yeah. And we'll be back in like about a week and a half and change with our draft special. We're actually going to go to MetLife to kind of.
I am going to try to make that happen. I'm very confident that I'm going to be able to join you, Walt, at MetLife.
Draft party.
I might virtually join you all, of course, because depending on when we record the episode, I will either be home in Atlanta or in Columbus, Ohio. So, yeah, but it'll be a fun episode nonetheless.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Awesome episode. So glad we had a chance to talk about both Jets and Giants, because lately it's been kind of Jet-centric just because of all the news that's been out there. But it's good to talk Giants also as well.
Hey, man, Roger to that.
Indeed.
All right. So, guys, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe if you're listening to this on the audio podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, just remember to hit that subscribe button and that little bell for notifications. Guys, until then, yes, we're about to bounce. So, as always, go Jets.
Go Giants.
And go Giants.
Go Giants. Later, people.
Peace.